Why isn't that working? What's going on here? Why isn't that connected? What is that? Welcome back to American Nostalgia Garage. No, this is not the Twilight Zone. We're working on this thing again. I thought you were done with this. Aren't you done? Well, yeah, actually I've been driving it a whole bunch. I've been really enjoying it with my family. Summer's coming to an end, or it is over. And actually I took it out last night. Been having its little aches and pains and whatnot, but we took it out last night and it took a big steamy one on me. Well, not really. I mean, it got me home, but a lot of little things are falling apart. Anyway, all joking aside, you guys know how it is when you put a car together. This stuff happens. You gotta, run them through the ringer, get them out there, blow out the cobwebs and get them on the road and just see what breaks first and then fix everything as it goes. This is a brand new car, basically. Every single part of this car has been touched. Almost every single part of this car has been replaced with something new and upgraded. And gotta be honest, some of the little things are becoming a bit of a headache. So today, we're gonna fix some of those little headaches so that this thing actually functions the way it should. I know. I am really out of energy with this car. As you know, we've been working on it for a while, and yeah, we're still working on it. And you never stop working on hot rods, but it is frustrating. I know you guys know how I feel when you put something together and just all the things that you did start trying to work together, and some of the things don't want to work together, and this is what happens. So a couple of things with this car. Last night, we blew a header gasket. Nothing worse than having something you spend a whole bunch of money on sound like crap because of a $3 item. Although in today's economy, a header gasket's probably $57,000. So, also the gas gauge doesn't work, and I need that because I put my family in this car. It's one thing if I'm going to get stuck by myself on the side of the highway. That's been done a time or a million. So I don't mind if it's just me, but I don't want to get stuck with my 3-year-old and my wife on the side of the highway. I get yelled at enough as it is at home. One of the ball joint fasteners somehow is loose. The cotter pin's still on there. I'm guessing I just forgot to tighten it, but somehow remembered to put the cotter pin on it. Sounds like something I would do, though.
Genius, genius!
And we developed a little bit of a misfire. I actually found a couple of burnt up spark plug wires last week, and I think from the amount of time that this thing's been running with the bad wires in it, that it actually blew out the plug. So we're going to change some plugs. And I want to get the speedometer working. We don't have a speedometer. Last thing I need to do is be going 107 in a 35. Because, that's real easy to do. So let's get under the hood, change the plugs. That'll be the first thing we'll do. We'll take a look at the ignition system. So first things first, I'm going to pull out all the spark plugs and get them changed out. If you guys are avid watchers of the channel, and I hope that you are, then you might know that the engine that's in this car currently is my engine out of my other Nova, the 72. And this, that 72 is my race car, and that car has big turbo on it and fuel injection and whatnot. Built a little bit of a different build than this, obviously. And, oh yeah, that's reeks like fuel. But this brings up my point, is the plugs that are in this right now were picked, this plug itself and the heat range were picked specifically because it was going in a turbo car that was looking to make lots of power. This is now NA with a carb and no turbo. So these plugs are no good. These plugs are very cold. This is an NGK, I think they're 45. It doesn't say on here. These are NGK 4554s, and it's a heat range 8. Now, NGKs kind of go backwards with backwards compared to everybody else, with their heat ranges, and their heat ranges, just going to throw that spark plug on the floor. NGK heat ranges are the lower the number, the hotter the plug. This is an 8, so it's a very cold plug for boost. But a cold plug in an NA car like this isn't going to burn up all that fuel and all the stuff that gets on it. You kind of need a little bit of a hotter plug for something that I got, like what I got here. So we got to pull out these NGK 8s, and I actually got, what did I get? A little bit better, not as moist. But I end up picking up some NGK, I think they're 5s. So, a little bit of a hotter plug. Alright, got them all out. They all look like they just got home from Vietnam. So, they're not good. And some of them look mostly just carboned up, like, you know, just rich and whatnot. Some of them actually have like what looks like maybe a little bit of oil, maybe a little bit of fuel. They smell very rich. In fairness, this one was basically dead because of that one wire I told you guys about. And so is this one. Both of these were on the 2 cylinders where the dead wires were. This one, however, wasn't. And this one's kind of wet. I don't know if you can tell. Versus like this one, which is carbon but dry. Anyway, there's a lot of things you can tell from a spark plug. The heat range itself, and the whole reason we're doing this is to change the heat range. The heat range on these is an 8. So there's basically, when you have spark plugs, there's a numerical value that tells you how good a spark plug is at dissipating heat or releasing heat from the spark plug itself into the cylinder head and the engine and whatnot. An 8 for NGK. NGK goes, let's call it backwards of all the other brands, but I chose NGK because even though they might be backwards, they do make really good plugs. So, NGK, I have an 8. An 8 for an NGK is like pretty cold plug. Really built for boost, and what cold means is that inside here, where this porcelain goes into the actual threaded portion of the spark plug, is shorter than it would be if it was a hotter plug. Shorter meaning it goes right to the metal almost immediately, or quicker than a hotter plug. That way, the porcelain doesn't hold on to the heat. It basically dissipates the heat right to this metal portion of the spark plug and into the engine. A hotter plug would be a longer portion, so it would hold on to the heat more. So in other words, it couldn't get right to the metal quick enough. Almost like a game of hot potato. Almost literally. The quicker it can pass off the hot potato, the quicker it can cool off and the colder the plug. So, these are really built for boost. I'm going to put a hotter set of plugs in here. Also another thing, just while we're talking about it, is you can tell a little bit from the timing, how the timing is set and how good it is and how close it is and how much you can get away with. Now, detonation and ping is something you want to watch out for, but there's a little timing mark. These are all kind of banged up. They're really not a good example, but like if you were to put a newer plug in an engine and run it for just a little while, you can get a pretty good read on the fuel mixture and the timing just based on looking at that. Basically what you want to do is gauge where the timing mark, the ignition will actually make a mark on this electrode strap, and you want it to be kind of near the bend of the electrode. If you know more than me about that, which you probably do, everyone probably does, throw it in the comments. Let us know exactly, where you like to see the timing mark on a strap and what you like your plugs to look like. Basically, these look no good, regardless of who you are. So, let's get these swapped out for a hotter plug, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. Almost forgot. This is what we're putting in. It's actually a 5 instead of an 8. I kind of want it to be a little bit hotter than this, but this is what the store had. So this is what we're putting in. All right, now that we have a new set of boogies installed, let's move on. So it's really tough to see what's going on here, except for my collector looks like Mr. Pac-Man from this angle. So we'll throw a new gasket in there, maybe that'll fix it, not really sure. Also noticing there's an alarming amount of oil underneath this car, but kind of already know what the deal is with that and kind of already fixed it. I'll show you when we get back up top, but we had to put like a whole breather system and whatever on this car. So let's get a new gasket in this thing. So not for nothing, this did sort of like delaminate, and we're missing some of the gasket material in between this layer here. But I probably could crush this down and use it again. The good thing about hoarding parts and having a serious mental issue about keeping absolutely everything that you ever use is I have gaskets just laying around all over the garage. Actually, I could probably blow these gaskets out like 6 more times and still have extra stock. So Let's throw this one in. That was just sitting on the shelf from another project. That'll fix it. Also, I probably should mention, I didn't mention it just a minute ago, but we're missing bolts in this thing. So I don't know if I forgot to tighten it. It didn't just go bad. We're actually missing bolts. Yeah, so don't tell your wife I said this, but holding on to old parts, it actually saves money. I really like to V-band this thing because these header collector gaskets are not my favorite, gotta be honest. You ever build something and then like 3 seconds after you're done with it, you're like, oh, I don't like the way I did it. It happens to me a lot. And I don't know how you guys deal with it. Like, do you guys just like, okay, you leave it? But I'm like weird. Not like, I'm certainly not a perfectionist, but it's weird because when I do that, then I take the entire car apart again and I redo it. If you guys watch the video of me painting the 72, I talk about the different turbo systems that I had on it. And boy, oh boy, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is putting something on, having it for 4 seconds, and then going, all right, gotta change it now. All right, I guess I'll buy some more gaskets for the next time that leaks. I'm gonna just check this side just to make sure. And they're loose. Wonder if they're just shaking loose from the vibration of the engine. I'm pretty much known for over-tightening everything, so I know that there's no way that I left them loose. Our next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check this fuel sender. I did hook it up, but it's not working. So the way they work is that they got like a little mechanism inside that varies resistance as the float changes. It actually has a lever arm that on the other side of the float it actually contacts a series of circuits, and the higher it goes and the lower it goes, it changes resistance. So I should get a resistance reading, and I'm just going to see if this thing has continuity to ground. So I know that basically that this thing's even connected inside. So I'm going to do two things. Right now I just set it up for continuity. I'm going to check continuity to ground. The continuity setting is also on resistance on this multimeter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get two things done in one. I'm going to know if it's got continuity, and then I'm going to know what the resistance is. This is a 0 to 90 ohm GM sender, so I should get a reading in between there. And it is pretty full, so I'm not sure if 90 is full or 0 is full, but I should get a reading between 90 and 0. I got 81, which kind of makes sense because, like I said, it is pretty much full. So that means I guess 90 would be full. And I got 81.5 ohms, which makes sense because I fueled up before we went out last night. We drove a little while. Also, I'm realizing that our panhard rod bracket is going to have to be clearance because it's actually touching the tire. Let me show you. See how it's kind of scalloping out the tire? I had to cut it back a whole bunch. I don't know if you can see it up there. This bracket used to shoot all the way out. I actually clearanced it because I knew this was going to be close. Let's see, maybe. And I don't really have room to bump the tire out like, say, with a spacer. So I'm going to have to cut that down just even a little bit more. And I have noticed, that's the sound that I'm hearing. I have noticed that when I make a left turn and I push all the weight of the tire to force the tire inwards, it does contact that. So I guess that's the noise I was hearing. So anyway, back to the task at hand. The sender itself is working. So I gotta see if our wire itself we got a problem here. So I gotta splice in here. I'm gonna check continuity from there to there, and then I'll bring the car down and we'll go from there. All right, so this time we're just checking continuity. Not really concerned with what the actual resistance value is, but let's see, make sure we got continuity here. Hear the beep. All right, so the wire is good from here to there at least. Actually, before I bring it down and keep testing the fuel, I'm going to tighten this ball joint. That's That's not something you want your ball joint to be doing. And if you look, watch this. Well, cotter pin did its job, and I guess I didn't. So let's tighten this up, put this cotter pin back in, and then we'll get the card out. All right, we're back up top. I'm going to check to see if we have the same reading on the wire up here as we did back there, just to ensure that the wire itself coming up here is good without having to crawl back underneath and do the continuity thing. So we're going to throw it back on a resistance setting. We're going to go to our Dakota Digital, which I had hidden behind the kick panel over here. And a ground. Same thing, within 1 ohm, 80.5. So within 1 ohm, and you know, there's some wire in between, so I guess that, you know, it's not exact, but it's very, very close, which means the gauge will be close enough. What I will say is that our issue actually may come down to me not completing it. And you guys know how it gets. You start with a project, you start doing something, and then you have to do something else first in order to finish the thing you're on. And then sometimes you just forget to go back to that other thing. I mean, that's probably how our ball joint ended up like that. The fuel negative terminal on our little control box, I guess, is supposed to go to ground in order to give it like its reference. I don't have anything on there at all, so I'm going to throw that to ground. Also, I was just looking in the instructions, which I don't have anymore, so I had to look them up online. And there's, I guess, a programming that has to go with that too. So I want to see if I can throw the ground on it and just see what the gauge says without programming it. Also, if you remember, I mentioned our speedo doesn't work, and I'm going to double check the wiring again here, but you're also supposed to program that. So I'm wondering if maybe this just all has to do with one ground wire and then some programming. Let me throw a little wire in there and just see if it has anything to do with being grounded. Alright, so what I did is I threw our little ground wire on there just to ground out that one thing. I used the same color as the fuel pump wire itself. That way it kind of keeps everything in theme. I did try the gauges. It doesn't give us a fuel reading. So I'm probably going to have to program this thing. So let me pull up the instructions and then we'll go through it. Alright, it seems like this is a series of pressing buttons and holding buttons and doing stuff. So hold switch 1. Now I put our little program switch here just to 1 kind of hide it, and 2 give it, you know, a spot where I can get it to it. So hold switch 1. It's got 2 positions, 1 and 2. Hold switch 1 and turn ignition on. Now the fuel pump's going to come on, so that's going to be annoying. You're going to get the setup message here. Tap switch 1 until you get set up fuel. There it is. Hold switch 1 until fuel sender is displayed. Yep, fuel sender. Hold switch 1 again and enter sender option to enter sender option menu. Good. Now we've got to toggle through the different options that we have. We have a GM90. There it is, GM90. So now we got it. Hold switch 1 to basically enter it. We've got done. Alright. So let's see if we got it. There it is, we got fuel. Nice. So it really is just a programming thing. Alright, so let's try our speedo too. Probably just loaded up the carburetor with 90 gallons of fuel, so that's good. Speedometer calibration. Okay, the speedometer thing we got to do on the street with, we got to know exactly how long a mile is and stuff like that. So we're not going to be able to do that right now here in the garage, but we do have fuel now. So that's a plus. I did check to make sure the speedometer thing is wired in properly, so it should work. All right, next we're gonna draw our attention to the trunk. I gotta clean it out, get some of this dirt out of here, and then I want to spray it with some rust reformer just to take care of some of this like surface rust stuff. And then I'm gonna speckle paint it. So let me get this thing cleaned out. I'm gonna throw a coat of this stuff on just to get rid of some of the surface rust, and then we can speckle paint over the top of that. Change of plans. This stuff's $13 a can, so I'm going to just spray the spots where there is surface rust. So the only spots that actually need to be reformed. So ironically, it looks like we pretty much painted the entire thing anyway. Just covered the rusty spots that needed to be coated so that we can stop that rust in its tracks. Now I'm going to throw on like a little coat of just some junky primer on there, and then we'll paint over that. Okay, I just learned something. This stuff comes out of the can like confetti. So basically, I think it just speckle paints what you already have there. So what I'm going to need to do is paint it with black first, and then we'll speckle over the top of that. I thought this was a paint itself, but really it just kind of shoots some confetti on there. I don't know. All right, we got the trunk coated black. While it's still kind of wet, I'm going to spray this. Maybe that'll embed it into the paint a little bit better. I don't know. Maybe this is a mistake. I don't know. We're going to find out. Watch how this comes out of the can. Pretty funny. Wow, it looks awesome though. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it looks pretty cool in person. On the camera it looks very uneven. Like those areas. What I'll tell you is this stuff goes fast. This can is probably about quarter full now. So I'll probably throw a couple of little coats on. I have 4 cans of this stuff. I didn't realize it was going to go this quick, but also it does cover a lot. So I'll throw on a little bit more and see if we can get it looking nice. All right, next thing's next. Something's supposed to go there. So, like everything else, we do this on the cheap. I bought a red glove box door off of eBay. I think I got this for $45 or something, which I thought was a good deal. Painted it black. We got our glove box liner, which actually came with our air conditioning retrofit kit. It fits terribly. It took a ton of fitting and shaving and cutting to get this to fit decent in there. It still doesn't fit fantastic, but just be thankful you don't have to watch it, because just be thankful. And then I bought a piano hinge for the actual hinge itself. I got this at the hardware store. It costs, I think, $7, and I'll have extra just in case I got to do another one of these, which will probably happen. Anyway, I forget what it is. I think you can't buy the hinge itself. You cannot buy one. They don't make it for this car. They don't reproduce it, I think. The glove box door kit is like $160 or something. So wasn't doing that. So I'm doing this for probably less than half price. No, definitely less than half price. And that's the way we do it here. So let me get a measurement for how long this thing needs to be, and then I'll cut it. Let me get this thing cut, and then we'll throw some screws in this. Yeah, yep. So we got mostly modified to fit in there. My wife made me buffalo chicken sliders. She's the best. Maybe I should eat these first and then talk to you, right? Alright, we got our piano hinge modified, set up to go in here. I ovaled out the holes by drilling in sideways. So that's good. Now I've got to use these little speed clips. You know what these are. Alright, I got the glove box installed. I'm not going to bother wrestling with these screws here, so what I'm actually going to do is just slot the liner so I could slide the liner in, pull it underneath the screws, and then tighten the screws back down on top of it. Because pulling these screws out and then feeding them through the liner while trying to hold it, it's just impossible. And since I'm not Tom Cruise, there's no way I can do this. So let's mess around with the liner a little bit some more, because why not? We didn't do that enough before, and then maybe we can get it a glove box done. Also got to put the lock on here, because that's what's going to hold it closed. And I think there's supposed to be a bracket there, so. All right, check it out. Nice. Now I'm just realizing after plugging my glove box door in, or my glove box light, that it doesn't work, so it needs a light bulb. Also, I think I'm missing the bulb down here. Yep. All right. Well, you guys know how hot rods are. That's a big improvement, even though it's something little and silly. Also tied up some of the stuff that was under the dash hanging down, so that's good. I just happened to bring this out, and I'm going to throw it on here. This molding goes in there. I think it's crazy, and you guys probably know what I'm talking about, that all these little tiny detail things, this takes up so much time. You could do an engine swap faster than you can get like half of these things done. And it's raining. It was not supposed to rain today. Well, the weatherman said it wasn't going to rain, but you know how that job goes. Pretty much say anything you want. Let's see if we put this window up, if it rattles a little bit less. Oh yeah, look at that. It rattles a whole lot less. Yeah, this window, before I put that in, would rattle quite a bit when it was pretty much like all the way up. Got one more thing we want to do today before we wrap it up over here. We're finally putting them on. Unbelievable. Alright, this is going to be a game of a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. Got to get all these screws into where they got to go. They kind of all converge in an angle. So if you pull all the way one all the way in, it's going to pull the whole thing over, and you won't be able to get the second one. So it's actually kind of a little bit of a headache. Alright, there's one. And actually, just since we're looking at it, this is the reason why I actually like the 67 nose the most. Is it looks like the grill kind of goes all the way across, and the headlight bezel itself is taller. It just looks more, you know, like aggressive to me, and I really like this whole setup. The 66 is like a pot metal trim piece, and it just goes sort of around the headlight. Doesn't have this integration with the grill. Still really cool, and I would have been happy to keep it, but since I was in the mood to spend a bunch of money, this is what I did. Alright, well, can you tell the difference? Probably not. Today was one of those days where you work on the car probably for several hours, and there's really nothing to show for it. You can't tell that you worked on it, nothing looks different, everything looks exactly the same. But unfortunately, these kind of days are necessary if you want to finish your hot rod. You guys know what I'm talking about. How many of you guys at home work on a hot rod sometimes for endless hours just to, at the end of the day, just step back and go, it doesn't look like I did anything. What I will say is a lot of times these are the most productive days because it's all the stuff you don't want to do that you've been collecting all for a time later, and that time later never comes. The little details are the kind of things that when you get them finished off, you're happy that you did it and you know that they're there and it feels good. Also, those little minor details a lot of times are like a bunch of little things that might stick out to people, like zip ties not being cut, which I'm the king of, and wires hanging down on the dash, and other things that are, it's just a bunch of things that you did good enough before just to get it out on the road. Basically what I'm saying, guys, is don't get discouraged if you have days like this, because they're absolutely necessary if you ever want to finish a hot rod completely. Anyway, that was today for me. So anyway, I'm calling it a day on this thing for today. We've got a lot more work on all the other cars to do, so we'll get back on that, I don't know, maybe tomorrow. Thank you guys for checking in, and as always, thank you for watching. American Nostalgia Garage, out.